we're not bowing. We are not bowing to their conditionality. We are a very small threat. We are not even a threat to them. But they have to contain us. Sanctions, sanctions, sanctions.
China's growth has enabled the ASEAN countries to also grow.
Welcome to Drar for Africa, where we dive into the intricate web of global geopolitics and economic transformations shaping our world. In today's episode, we explore the shifting power dynamics as Asia's economic giants rise, and we dissect the heated discussions from the Russia-Africa summit. Join us as we unravel the strategic proposal to counter Western dominance and envisage a new world order. Stay tuned for insights that challenge the status quo and redefine the narrative of global leadership. Drar for Africa is your gateway to understanding the forces driving change across continents. Let's embark on this journey together. Let's begin.
China has been is the world's oldest continuous civilization, 4,000 to 5,000 years. And China's links with Southeast Asia go back at least 2,000 years. So there are long historical relationships between Southeast Asia and China, and by the way, also with India. And something that may surprise your viewers or listeners is that of the 10 ASEAN countries, Southeast Asian countries, 9 have an Indic base, and 1 has a Sinic base. So culturally, the Southeast Asian countries are closer to India than they are to China. But today, definitely, China's influence in Southeast Asia is much greater. In fact, China's trade with Southeast Asia in the year 2000 was only $40 billion. But by 2020, that number had reached $975 billion. Can you imagine going from $40 billion in the year 2000 to $975 billion in 2022. And that's amazing, right? An amazing.
So what does it mean for you? What don't you see that that's a domination instead of friendly relationship?
No, well, it's, unlike Europe, which doesn't know how to manage its neighboring great powers, we have managed to enjoy good relations with our neighboring great powers. And, I'm sure you heard of Vietnam. Vietnam has had a very long relationship with China. And Vietnam has been, by the way, Vietnam was occupied by China only for 1,000 years, right? The Vietnamese understand China. You know what they say in Vietnam? They say that to become the leader of Vietnam, you must be able to stand up to China. And you must
what does it mean? What does it mean?
And you must be able to get along with China.
But so what does it mean in practice? How a little Singapore or much larger Vietnam, how you see the relationship with this giant?
Well, we have, I can tell you, as of now, excellent relations. China's growth has enabled the ASEAN countries to also grow. Let me give you another statistic. In the year 2000, Japan's economy, you mentioned Japan earlier, was eight times bigger than ASEAN's economy. Now Japan is only 1.3 times bigger. By 2030, ASEAN will be bigger than Japan. So what Europeans got to understand is that there's a culture of pragmatism among Asian countries. We don't make loud statements. We don't give speeches. We don't claim we're going to save the world, but we just perform better than any other region in the world. So, there's the Europeans will find it difficult to accept the idea that they should now begin to learn lessons from Asia. But actually, the time has come for Europeans to learn to be as pragmatic as Asian countries, because if Europe does not become pragmatic, it will have a very difficult future ahead for Europe.
What do you mean to be pragmatic from the European side vis-a-vis China?
Oh, not just vis-a-vis China, vis-a-vis. It's important for Europe to work out a comprehensive long-term strategy of what are the biggest threats and opportunities for Europe over the next 10 to 20 years or 30 years. And the biggest threat to Europe is going to come from the demographic explosion in Africa, right? In the year 1950, Africa's population was half that of Europe. Today, Africa's population is 2.5 times the size of Europe. By 2100, Africa's population will be 10 times the size of Europe. So you should focus your strategic sights on how you develop Africa. And here, even though Chinese investment in Africa is creating jobs for Africans and keeping Africans in Africa, the Europeans, instead of sending a thank you note to China for saying, thank you, China, for investing in Africa, you are joining the United States in criticizing Chinese investment in Africa when it is against your own interest. You're being unpragmatic. You're sacrificing your own interests, which is bizarre. Why are you doing that? And so, Asians look at Europe and say, this 100 years ago, this continent could run the world, right? I mean, the European countries, I know Poland didn't colonize any countries, but, you know, the British, the Dutch, the French, the Belgians, they colonized the world. And today, Europe can't take care of itself, which is a very, very strange. So I think what Europeans need to do is to become a bit more humble and modest and ask itself whether it can learn lessons from other parts of the world on how to manage things.
NATO is different. NATO does not exist. NATO is under intensive care. EU does not exist. EU is under intensive care. Now, 30 years ago, when they decided to contain Russia, they felt that was the major threat for them. China was not considered a threat at the time. Now they know. They missed the point. They couldn't contain Russia. They will never contain Russia. Ukraine is a sacrifice. Ukraine is a price they have to pay. They will not pay it on their own. They will provide billions and billions, even trillions, to continue this war. And now we need to have the narrative straight. This is not war between Russia and Ukraine. This is declared war against Russia because Russia was the major threat at the time. Now they can't dominate the whole world. They have to defeat Russia so that they hegemonize everything. No one should be their equal technologically. Militarily, they have to be superior. Economically, they have to control everything, grab every resource here and there, technology under their control. That dream is no more. Now the fighting going in Ukraine, it's their battleground. That battleground is a sacrifice for them. And we need to put this straight on the record. When a big meeting like this, Russia, Africa is held, people will have to come to a consensus. This is not war between Russia and Ukraine, to me. And anyone who has a different explanation will have to tell me. This is war declared on Russia, but declared war for hegemony. The last 30 years, we have seen the details of the mechanics of this declared war. This last event is the final phase to me. It will end sometime. NATO will not get out of intensive care. EU will not get out of intensive care. These are systems that are crumbling. It's only a matter of time. And the whole world will have to be prepared not to defend Russia, but stand with Russia so that this hegemonistic idea will not prevail at any point in time in history. How do we design a plan? How do we fail this one without any further cost? They are printing money. They are not manufacturing anything at all. It's printing money. And this has been one of their weapons globally. The monetary system, the global monetary system, controlled by dollar and euro, has been used. Sanctions here, sanctions there, sanctions there, grabbing this account, grabbing that account, has been one of their tools. This is not going to continue indefinitely. And we need a new financial architecture globally, not controlled by euro, not controlled by the dollar, not controlled by other currencies.
The Eritrean leader also stressed that the West's failed agenda to contain China will eventually lead them to turn their attention towards the East, specifically China. According to him, Western powers will deceptively defriend China to make their containment of Russia easier, but they will face a critical problem. China does not want to be controlled, neither does Russia, Eritrea, or any other country. President Afwerki acknowledged that the West will use everything in its arsenal to contain everyone regardless, from sanctions to instigated conflicts. Therefore, he called upon Russia to lead the rest of the world in a counter-strategy against the West's hegemonistic war, because historically, Russia has remained the only country to truly stand up to the West's thirst for world domination before the Soviet Union tragically collapsed.
To me, this failure of the attempt to contain Russia will immediately move to the east. Containing China is their next agenda. They may be playing a very deceptive tactic on trying to tell everyone, oh no, we have to work with China, we have to do this and that. Their miscalculation about China has proved to be wrong. They felt probably they have the technology, they have everything. The Chinese can only copy. They will never equal them. So they will contain Russia, but make friendship with China and continue taking advantage of that so that containing Russia will be easier for them to do. Now China is out of control. Containing China from Taiwan, from India, from Japan, from South Korea, from Australia. How do they do it? How will they do it? That challenge is coming next. But first they need to deal with Russia. How are they going to deal with Russia and then next move to China? How can they deal with everybody? How do they contain us? Imagine this tiny Eritrea is being contained by them. We're being punished with their sanctions every time. We have to be punished because we're not bowing. We are not bound to their conditionalities. We are a very small threat. We are not even a threat to them. But they have to contain us. Sanctions, 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 conflict here, conflict there. Now, I think we need to strategize. And I say Russia will have to lead this strategy. Russia will have to design a plan on facing this declared war. Not only on Russia, but it's a global war. And everybody should come and join Russia on this strategy. The sooner the better. The easier way we can control this hegemonistic strategy and frustrate that strategy, we give peace. Development will come. Nobody is going to bother us. Nobody is going to bully everybody. Sanction, sanction, bully, defamation, demonize, psychological warfare, sanctions. We need a strategy, an alternative strategy for this hegemonistic declaration of war. And every event, bilateral, multilateral, will have to adopt this strategy. And that's why I said during my intervention, Russia should design a strategy. It's not because Russia will have to do everything. We can make our contributions. It's a matter of ideas. How do we face this hegemonistic strategy so that we can implement bilateral programs, technology, industrialization, agriculture, energy, water management, services, tourism, life, how do we do that? Now, and we have to take this into a historical context. This is a continuation of the classical slavery. After slavery came colonialism. Slavery was exterminating populations, exterminating 9 million in the Congo, exterminating the Red Indians in North America, in Canada, exterminating indigenous population and grabbing their land, controlling. And when they control land, they have to take slaves from Africa for their cotton plantation in the United States. That was slavery. continues to be slavery as is. And then industrialization came. When industrialization comes up, it's a matter of grabbing other resources, a continuation of slavery under a different form. Colonialism came. They had to colonize land so that they grab land, they control labor, they enslave everybody. Neocolonialism was there. The Cold War, Russia was the hope for the people of the world when the Soviet Union was there. Unfortunately, leaders in the Soviet Union made their mistake to see the collapse of the Soviet Union, which was a historic tragedy. As you at one point mentioned, that was a historic strategy. In the course of the history of humanity, that was a catastrophe. And that was one of the reasons that encouraged people like Fukuyama, Huntington to design their strategy of hegemony. Because the Soviet Union collapsed, the Soviet Union disintegrated, then they felt they can control the world for the coming 50 years or 100 years without anyone challenging them. And that was when this hegemonistic fantasia was developed.